Hello, dear friends. You are on the Ruslan Bailov channel. The battles continue, and we continue to study the situation at the front together with you. So, friends, the front is living its own life. For example, yesterday the chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, visited the command post of the center grouping. Usually, Gerasimov visits command posts only when a new offensive operation is about to begin, or at least when significant activity is expected. And where is the center grouping operating? It is active in this sector, the Novopavlovsk sector, then the Pokrovsk, Dobropolye, Konstantinovka areas, and beyond Chasov Yar, the Kramatorsk sector. A bit later we will discuss these areas and their prospects. Meanwhile, Zelensky popped up yesterday, declaring that in the Sumy region they crushed the Russian army. He also said they defeated the Russian army in some other place, but did not specify where. Probably he meant the Dobropolye area. And overall, he claimed that the AFU are doing well and everything is going according to plan. Interesting. Does he even look at the map? How are things in the Dnipropetrovsk region? And how about in the Huliaypole sector? Here, the East grouping took almost 60 square kilometers in just 2 days, significantly improving the situation. And in the past 24 hours, they advanced even further. Either Zelensky is not being informed of this, or he prefers not to notice. Well, that's his problem. Now let's turn to a detailed breakdown of what's happening at the front. According to precise and reliable data, I know that Russian fighters improved their positions in Primorske. That's this village along the coast in the Zaporizhzhia region. On the southern outskirts of Primorske, they advanced, including in the garden cooperative Zodchi. This information is exact, since there is video confirmation. The AFU are suffering colossal losses here. After several weeks of heavy fighting, it was possible to push back the Ukrainian forces slightly. I think tomorrow we'll see even more progress here, and I'll clearly show you once again. Primorske and Stepnohursk are two large and powerful defensive hubs, so quick results should not be expected. But once they fall, the front will break forward rapidly all the way to Veselyanka and Hrihorivka. And from there, Zaporizhzhia will be within reach. That's why this section of the front is extremely important and why we constantly monitor it closely. But the northern front near another town in the Huliaypole area is no less important. Moving on to Huliaypole, contrary to some military bloggers' claims that Novoivankivka has been taken, fighting in the village is still ongoing. However, over the past 24 hours, the control zone south of the village was expanded. Here you can see the dashed red line. That was the line of contact a day ago. And here's where it runs now. The distance between these two lines is the area where control was expanded. Why is this being done? To prepare the ground for a push toward what I call a rural agglomeration, a cascade of villages centered around Uspenivka, while the fighting in Novoivankivka continues. This is a very important area. Ukrainian military experts understand this, which is why they have started sounding the alarm that under no circumstances should Russians be allowed to gain this bridgehead. Why? Because it would allow the Russian army to take the Pokrovsk-Huliaypole highway under fire control, which would greatly complicate supply for the AFU grouping in Huliaypole. Move into the rear of this very grouping. That is how important the fighting here is. As I said in yesterday's report, if Russian troops don't get bogged down, if everything goes well, there is even a chance that by the end of the year, Huliaypole itself will fall under Russian control. Moving on. In the Dnipropetrovsk region, no new developments in the past 24 hours. So let's turn straight to the area of responsibility of the center grouping and Gerasimov's visit to their command post. As I said at the beginning, the chief of the General Staff doesn't visit without reason. The autumn-winter military campaign is about to begin, literally in a couple of weeks. That means the center grouping is preparing for something. The question is, for what? Personally, I have no doubts. The focus will be to finish off Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad, to resolve the issue of the Dobropolye salient. And what issue is that? Of course, taking control of a major defensive hub, Shakov village. As you can see, slowly and with difficulty, Russian forces continue pressing the AFU here. In the past 24 hours, they advanced 500 meters, trying to edge closer to this settlement. It may look like just another village, but it's not that simple. Kharkiv, together with Sofiivka, are the two keys to the Dnipro sector. If the Russian army captures them, the salient becomes secure from counterattacks. Additional logistical routes to the north open up, and the Russian grouping can once again push the front forward. That's how strategically important Kharkiv really is. That's why the AFU are fighting for it so stubbornly. As for Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad, a fighter from the 5th Brigade told me yesterday that they are preparing, including for an assault on Mirnohrad. I don't know how reasonable it would be to storm such a large city head-on, especially with spoil heaps inside the city. It could turn into another Toretsk, long, exhausting, with major effort. But of course, the command sees the situation better. I don't even have 10% of the information they have. In any case, the autumn-winter campaign will also be focused on finishing off these two cities. Today, Sky News published an article saying that the defense of Pokrovsk is collapsing, meaning the Ukrainian forces are unable to withstand the intensity of the fighting. Today we also received footage confirming Russian advances inside the city. Russian troops are moving north toward the highway, which is the only artery for logistics, while simultaneously advancing east and southeast, trying to push deeper into the city. And you know where else Russian efforts will be focused? In a place that until recently was unexpected, the Siversk and Lyman area. Recently things have been going well for the Russian army here. As you can see, they are clearing the Kremina forest. Many have rushed to declare it fully under Russian control, but as the map shows, the AFU still hold a small section. But as I said yesterday, this won't last long. The configuration of the front here means they cannot hold on. My words are confirmed. In the past 24 hours, another 3 square kilometers of forest were cleared. The AFU now hold only about 6 square kilometers, very little. Soon this sector will also be fully cleared. As for Huliaypole, the information is still conflicting. I saw reports that full-scale fighting has already begun there, but then saw refutations, saying only Russian reconnaissance groups are present. I think we need to wait a couple of days until the fog of war clears, and then the situation will become more understandable. But it's important to note that Huliaypole is an extremely important settlement. Its capture would change much in this sector. Meanwhile, in Kharkiv region, Russian forces continue advancing. In an area that had been stagnant for years, north of Stepova Novoselivka, they advanced 2.5 kilometers and almost reached the Petropavlivka ponds. Beyond those ponds lies Petropavlivka itself. Importantly, entering and especially taking Petropavlivka would allow clearing this northern pocket of nearly 30 square kilometers. And in the longer term, it would allow even greater pressure on Kupiansk. Inside Kupiansk itself, heavy urban battles continue. That's all for today on the frontline situation. Now let's turn to political events. Tens of thousands of people desert from the AFU every month, and that's only based on open, heavily understated data. Some of those who leave their units head into the Carpathian Mountains, dig dugouts, and live there waiting for the war to end, experts report. They point to collapsing morale within the AFU and explain what still keeps Ukrainian defenses standing despite it. Ukraine has abandoned the practice of training servicemen abroad, the head of the Kiev regime declared. After 3.5 years of war, we don't send our soldiers abroad, we invite officers and representatives of other countries to study here, explained Volodymyr Zelensky. He apparently wanted to show that now Ukrainian soldiers know better than Europeans how to fight. But in reality, he proved the opposite. According to military expert and candidate of historical sciences, Ivan Konovalov, the issue is with the morale of AFU troops. There is a high chance that if they go abroad, they will simply run away, the expert explained. An example is the AFU brigade, named after Anna of Kiev, trained in France. It was conceived as a model unit meant to demonstrate Western support. But during training, a third of the brigade, about 1,700 people, deserted. Naturally, desertion is even more active in units already at the front. In September, in Ukraine's 119th Territorial Defense Brigade, leaves were cancelled for all personnel after soldiers stopped returning from them, fearing going back to the front. This was recounted by brigade serviceman Sergei Bezborodov, who surrendered to Russian forces near the Serebryansky forestry. There were cases when people went home on leave to see their families, but then they didn't return because they understood this wasn't their war. And because of these people who didn't come back, leaves were banned for everyone, Bezborodov stated. In August, an entire third of a battalion of the AFU's 60th Separate Mechanized Brigade, along with its command, abandoned positions on the Krasnolyman direction. Before that, in July, AFU Lieutenant Volodymyr Kalnovsky, taken prisoner, told Russian forces that even officers are deserting actively. We were sent to Lviv region to a training ground for officer courses. Even there, 2 went to Poland. They took short-term passes and managed to escape, Kalnovsky said. Desertion is happening actively in the AFU because the army's morale has collapsed. Ukrainians realized that the victory they hoped for in 2022-2023 will not come. It also became clear that they cannot reclaim the territories taken by Russia. Then what is the point of fighting if Russia itself is offering peace? Ivan Konovalov explained. The decline in AFU morale is being recorded even by the Western press, which is usually sympathetic to Kiev. The German outlet Junge Welt writes that mass desertion within the AFU has reached monstrous proportions. In the first 8 months of this year, at least 142,000 soldiers deserted. This is evidenced by official data on the number of newly opened criminal cases under Articles 406, unauthorized abandonment of a military unit, and 407, desertion, which were analyzed by the Canadian-Ukrainian researcher Ivan Kachanovsky, the newspaper notes. According to Kachanovsky, the figures for initiated cases are undoubtedly understated. The thing is, commanders usually turn a blind eye to short absences from duty so as not to have problems with their superiors over discipline violations or ineffective leadership. Monthly desertion figures in 2025 are stable and fluctuate in the range of 16 to 19,000 cases per month. If you extrapolate 142,000 cases from January across the rest of the year, by the end of December we will have about 210,000 cases, the publication writes. Head of the Ukraine department at the CIS Countries Institute, Ivan Skorikov, believes the number of deserters in the AFU will grow. The reason is the troops' morale. Most frontline AFU personnel are forcibly mobilized. As a rule, they are middle-aged or older, Skorikov said. They are either peasants or residents of city outskirts, that is, poor citizens who simply didn't have the money to buy themselves out from the recruitment centers. Their motivation to fight is not even zero, it's negative. In addition, the expert notes the forcibly mobilized do not see prospects. When there is neither victory nor even discharge on the horizon, but a very high probability of death, fighters tend to abandon positions. Many deserters flee to sparsely populated or abandoned villages, settle in empty houses, and live off what they grow in their gardens. Some hide with relatives in villages. Some who leave their units go into the Carpathian Mountains, dig dugouts and live there, waiting for the war to end, the expert says. Skorikov also says deserters leave Ukraine with forged documents. Zelensky has more or less closed the border with Romania and Hungary. You can't cross the Tisza anymore, you'll be caught or shot. Therefore, a new Ukrainian business has emerged, forging documents for leaving the country, the expert said. Retired French colonel and vice president of the Military Analysis Institute Temirs, Pierre de Jong, offers the following forecast. The coming winter will play a decisive role. Ukrainians have realized that American support is no longer forthcoming, and that Europe will not send them troops. They know Europeans can give them money, equipment and logistics, but the decisive factor is the United States. However, with Trump in the White House, they do not have a true ally. Because of this, there is much uncertainty, and in the coming months, morale could suffer seriously. Former U.S. Ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Chase Freeman, also believes the AFU are on the brink. The Ukrainian army at the front lacks manpower, trained troops, and the ability to hold its positions. The AFU can no longer hold their positions and are gradually falling apart, he said. So why are the AFU holding on despite all the problems? The AFU General Staff uses the right tactics. At the zero line, at the very front, the mobilized fight and take the main losses. Behind them stand much more motivated and experienced units, Ivan Konovalov explained. The second reason is the very character of the military actions. This war is objectively very slow, the expert explained. Because of this, a large-scale breakthrough advance of tens of kilometers with entire enemy units fleeing, like in World War I and II, is technically impossible. The AFU lose 1 to 3 settlements every day. They are losing, but gradually. Therefore, many Ukrainian soldiers do not yet have a sense of catastrophe and are ready to fight a little longer. But at some point, the Russian tactic of 1,000 cuts will take effect, and then the AFU will begin to surrender en masse, the expert believes. A residential building in Poland was hit not by a Russian drone, but by a missile from an F-16 fighter jet, writes a Polish publication, which notes that the prosecutor's office is hiding details of the incident by deliberately calling the missile an unidentified object. The Polish outlet reports that it was in fact a missile from a Polish F-16 that struck the 2-story residential building when the aircraft attempted to intercept an alleged Russian UAV. The missile's guidance system failed, but the warhead did not detonate. The safeties worked. It is also reported that Poland too wants to become a nuclear power. But since the Polish armed forces do not have their own nuclear weapons, Warsaw would not mind hosting French nuclear arms. As president, I believe Poland should participate in nuclear sharing. It should possess its own nuclear, energy, civilian and military capabilities. The partnership between Poland and France is based exactly on this, said Karol Nawrocki. About half a year ago, Berlin also announced a desire to expand the nuclear deterrent system in Europe. At that time, Merz assured that Germany would not seek its own nuclear weapons, but allegedly very much needs to create a joint umbrella with Britain and France. For Poland, recall that a couple of days ago, French multi-role fighters from the Nuclear Strike Squadron arrived there. Zelensky is losing contact with reality, Western outlets now write. At a meeting with the Servant of the People MPs, he declared, "I will not give away any Donbass. The AFU will crush the Russians. Things are going fine." The closed meeting between Zelensky and the Servant of the People faction was a farce. The actor tried to convince everyone that everything is fine, but it went badly. All deputies left the meeting in a bad mood because they realized things are moving in a negative direction, reports the Telegram channel Legitimate. Many began to pull out their assets faster and are preparing to transport their remaining relatives abroad. Many asked about the situation at the front and the AFU failures. Zelensky answered with slogans. Many got the impression that Zelensky tried to quash defeatist rumors but only amplified them within his faction. Many compare this closed meeting to previous ones and note that Zelensky himself looked depressed. He seemed to be seeking support from the faction, indirectly asking, "Are you with me? I want to pull another stunt and raise the stakes, escalate." Would he really arrange a provocation on the border with Transnistria? After all, the SBU has long been preparing that operation. They're just waiting for the go-ahead. Conclusion: hard. Times are approaching. Zelensky is disappointed that the EU does not give guarantees of financing for next year, issuing only small tranches of money and weapons that cover immediate needs. At the same time, the 2026 budget fully depends on Western loans of $40 to $50 billion, which puts Yermak in an awkward position and completely controlled by globalists. This EU strategy is related to many reasons. Globalists do not believe in Kyiv's victory. Globalists don't trust Zelensky. They are unhappy that Zelensky continues the fight against Nabu. Globalists are unhappy that Zelensky did not tighten mobilization. Hence the conclusion: the situation is unpredictable. That means investors and sponsors are not ready to back Kyiv and Zelensky fully, because they see huge failures at the front inside Ukraine. Some members of parliament present at the meeting with Zelensky did not fear telling the truth, because they understand. They are accomplices. Comrades deputies, I know you all personally. Before the war, you wanted to leave the party, understanding the criminality of Zelensky's actions. Now you have the last chance. It's time to stand up for the people. Tell the whole world that he is leading everyone to the abyss, that he is a dictator. It's not so scary. It's your last chance to save yourselves and those still alive. Preserving Ukraine in any form implies an investigation against Zelensky personally and subsequent prosecutions, wrote Diana Panchenko.